All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to have Arlen with us for an Arlen Tuesday. And Arlen, yes, I am here. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I mean, personally, yes, but when I look at the world around me, not so good.
Well, I asked you before we went live if you had some news. And yes, it's a rough time. It's a tough time. I saw a YouTube video thumbnail. I didn't watch it. I wish I had. I will at some point, telling us that people are more depressed, we're more angry, we're more quick-tempered. And of course, I always have a temper, so that's especially bad for me. You're a calmer type personality, which is good. But I was just wondering, in terms of what's happening today, if you had some updates on the situation in Los Angeles, specifically the protests against ICE that have been in the news since Friday.
Well, it's definitely still on the news. Everybody's talking about it. The pictures are being shown. Things kind of ebb and flow there. The protesters get a little bit angry at certain times, usually in the evening, and then, there's the cops right there, and Trump is threatening bringing in the Marines and who knows who else. So it could get really, really dangerous and bad, but so far, not yet.
Well, like I said, you're watching Halitics. I just put the subscribe little GIF up, so please do subscribe. Click like if you get a chance, and join us on the Facebook page there. Arlen is a frequent poster there. You got a lot of heat, Arlen. I had to, I usually don't step in, and you're very able to defend yourself, but I don't like the personal attacks, and I make that very, very clear. So we try to keep it safe and friendly at Halitics.
Yeah, I hope I made it clear that I also don't want to hear those kind of, negative personality comments. It's just not good. I want to debate issues, not, people's personalities.
100%. That's what we're all about at Halitics online, at Halitics, the podcast, and everywhere else. By the way, call in if you get a chance, 240-242-5646. Hope you join us. If you hear something you like, or if you hear something you don't like, we'd really, really like your feedback and your responses. 240-242-5646. And I was telling you, Arlen, a little bit of the technical back end stuff from Monterey. You showed zero interest. You couldn't care less. But I also have trouble, for some reason, the Google phone dialer, the ringer, only works sometimes, but not other times. It's a coast-to-coast Halitics with Arlen. We're going to talk about the New Jersey primary. We already mentioned the Los Angeles protests. We're not calling them riots. I don't think we've seen rioting, have we, Arlen?
Well, it depends on what you call rioting. The Trump administration is just on the verge of calling it rioting, and they're trying to, figure out ways to send in more troops or, to get things stirred up, I think, because I think it's to Trump's advantage and the MAGA people's advantage to see these brown people rioting in the street and, burning flags and burning cars. And it just helps Trump. And I don't think that's a good thing.
There were a few gatherings. There were a few fires lit, I believe. Maybe some cars were damaged. I'm really not clear, but it does seem, given the size of the city and the scope of the response to these horrific ICE Gestapo-like tactics, rounding people up, herding them into vans, that so far, at least, we haven't had any deaths reported. I'm not aware of serious injuries. So that is a very, very good thing so far.
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't surprise me to start seeing some of those serious injuries or even deaths coming from this, because I think, Trump wants to escalate this as much as he can and, make these people who are protesting, make them into some kind of evil monsters, and that helps his popularity. So, I'd like to see it be toned down, and then of course Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is very upset by all of this, and Trump is trying to get him to be, I don't know, impeached or something. And I actually have more respect now for Newsom than I had before, because he's coming on really strong in defense of his city and the people that or an office in California, and it doesn't want to see the national military step in and make things worse.
We do have a comment on Facebook, actually, in the live stream there from Eric. He is citing, too, a Substack piece by Matt Taibbi, probably not your favorite. Taibbi has been very critical of the left. This is something about groupthink on the left. And I've seen that, Eric. I hear what you're saying. I don't think Arlen would necessarily share that view. We have such rank partisanship on both sides. It's unfortunate. We have trouble listening to each other, and I'm trying to remedy that problem here. Before we get to the horrible situation in Gaza, where obviously it's far, far worse than Los Angeles, Arlen, what would you say to a right winger, or just let's say a MAGA or a Trump supporter or even a conservative who said, all right, so we see these protests in Los Angeles and Trump has really responded forcibly and we have 2,000 apparently Marines or some huge number. I don't know what the exact number is, but we haven't seen deaths. We haven't seen a lot of property destruction. Compare that to some of the Black Lives Matter rallies where there was a lot more unrest. We had deaths in some of those events. How would you respond to someone who said, hey, Trump's handling it pretty well?
Trump's handling it well for himself, because anytime he wants to get, really strong and powerful and use the military, it makes him look good among many people in this country, because they don't really trust the protesters. They don't look like the average middle American. They're often, a lot of them are not citizens, and they're, reacting to everything that's going on around them, and they're being pushed around, no doubt about it, by ICE, and in a very unfair way. So, it's something that has to be encountered. For both sides, those who are being attacked, who are being, hurt by ICE, they have to react, because their lives are being ruined. And at the same time, the Trump people cannot tolerate any kind of disagreement or protest. So, you have a clash.
Well, I want to see response to this overreach, this cruelty by the Trump administration. I've said often in the past that the worst thing I believe Trump did, certainly during his first administration, was the abusive treatment of immigrants. I hated that. I hated it then. I hate it worse now, because I think it's even worse. Rounding people up is just wrong. There's just no justification for it. It's terrible. Obviously, my heart right now is in Gaza even more than it is with the immigrants here, but it's in both places. But again, let's see how this plays out. If things get back to calm, what we really do need, though, is we need an uprising in this country. We need people to stand up to the forces of oligarchy and plutocracy. And we're seeing a little bit of that in Los Angeles. Maybe general strikes. That's what one of my guests over the weekend said we need. But we do need absolute disobedience when it comes to this autocracy. I would use that word, authoritarianism.
Well, if you say that, then there's going to be a response from the Trump administration, because they won't tolerate any disagreement and criticism of what they do. So, it's very tricky. I don't know, I don't know how they're going to handle it. I don't know how. Actually, there's something we should talk about too, and that's Saturday. There's going to be a big protest. The indivisible group.
No King's Day, and it's in response to the military parade down Pennsylvania Avenue, which I think is another really scary thing. It's clearly fascistic. The fetishizing the military, using it to associate the leader with the army is a hallmark of fascism. So a lot of very, very bad things happening right now in our country.
Yeah, happens to be Trump's birthday that day, so he wants to conflate, get the feeling that he is the military, he is America, he is strong, and he's going to exploit it all he can. It's going to cost us a lot of money to have all those giant tanks and military vehicles driving around Washington, D.C., but that's not important to Trump and his people. They just want a big spectacle, and they want it to come off well. I don't know what the protesters are going to do about it, if they can even get close to the military parade.
Well, I'll be at a Green Party event, Arlen, in case you're interested. I'll be working to elect people who really are on the side of the people. So I'll be at a Green Party.
What I could sort of imagine is, one of the protesters standing in front of the tanks like they did in China years ago. And what would happen then? What's going to happen? So I don't know if the protesters will get anywhere near the parade, but it would be interesting if they are able to do that.
All right, 240-242-5646 if you want to join us. I see some folks commenting on Facebook. Haven't checked out the YouTube video stream yet at this point. We do have more deaths, obviously, every single day. 54 killed in Gaza. The death toll approaching, as you see from the Turkish news agency Anadolu Ajansi, close to 55,000. And let's go put that up. And I've got to just make it a little wider so you can see in all of the verbiage there. But since October 7, Israel and the United States, and I certainly say both, have killed a minimum of 54, you heard that, close to 55,000, 54,981 Gazans. And that includes, the 231 was Friday through Sunday, the new number 54 from yesterday. So I'll just correct that. I always miss one of these. When I do these things, that's 54 Monday. And then from March 18 through today, I should put that a capital too, Arlen.
Let's just say a lot of people are being killed unnecessarily.
I'm having trouble. Monday. From March 18th through today, Trump and Netanyahu have killed 4,706 and many children as well. Terrible, terrible circumstances. We've got to do everything we can to stop that war. I think only a political, yes, we do need to get in the streets. We need to protest. But what we really need are better elected officials, better representatives, both in Congress, everywhere, Congress, the White House, and in state houses around the country.
Well, the American people are not going to get too worked up over this if it's not covered. And it's really hard to find it in the major news outlets. This thing, it just keeps going on with this, civilians being killed all the time, but, nobody's saying much about it. It's kind of like, and then I think about Ukraine and what Russia's doing to Ukraine right now, trying to, go into all their civilian areas and kill as many people as possible. And Trump has no strategy there. He's not on either team.
We're not really reading a lot about Ukraine either, Arlen, I think is your point, right? The media just isn't covering these wars.
I think they are a little more than they are Gaza, but not enough.
Well, they're covering it a little more because the corporate media tends to be much more pro-Ukraine and pro-Israel. And the story out of the Middle East, to any somewhat rational person, any sensitive person, is that Israel's monstrous, Israel's evil, Israel's a genocidal state that must be stopped. So that message is not one that the media wants to share. On the other hand, they're good with war with Russia. So, we'll tell you how bad Russia is and hope that Trump will start deploying troops or send weapons at least back, keep supplying Ukraine, because it's profitable also for the U.S. Corporations and Western multinationals if we keep sending arms to Ukraine.
Yeah, but Trump doesn't seem to feel that way. He's pretty much stepping aside and letting Ukraine and Putin, fight among themselves. Meanwhile, thousands of civilians are being, attacked in Ukraine, and in Russia too.
Ukraine has sent drones over there and caused a lot of damage. Yeah, I think Trump's policy is spot on correct. This is not our fight. We don't have any real interests except for corporate ones. Doesn't impact negatively on the American public one way or the other. Both sides there's a lot of problems with both sides. Trump is sick of it. He wants the war to end. He's done what he can to stop it. He can't stop it. That's the
He
end of
said
it.
he was going to stop it easily in one day, but obviously he can't. And of course, I disagree wholeheartedly with you, Hal, about what we should be doing. I think we have to stop Putin. If we don't stop Putin, that you give him more power to continue doing what he's doing, getting involved in outside countries, and maybe even attacking further countries down the road after he's done.
You really think Russia poses a threat? It's the population is dropping there. The military couldn't even conquer Ukraine. Even with us kind of stepping back, they're not able to defeat Ukraine. It's a war of attrition. It's just Russia is, if anything, weaker as a result of this war.
Well, that's what we're hoping they're weaker, and then they'll come to the negotiating table. But, Putin he's got the second biggest amount of nuclear weapons of anybody. He's shown no decency, to the people in his country and to other countries. He just wants to win, and he's got a focus right now on destroying Ukraine. And I just think that's bad for our country because
I think both sides. I think this should. It's both sides have aggravated it. I agree. Putin is more to blame for sure than Zelensky, and Zelensky actually did try to push for peace back in 2022, I believe, but the U.S., the UK stopped that. So I don't know. This is one of those situations where, again, just like in Vietnam, we should have stayed out of that. I think Trump is right to get us out of this. I don't see the geopolitical interests that we have in Ukraine are small. And Russia, I disagree with you when you claim that they pose some kind of major threat. I'll just close with this, and then you can always, as always, have the last word. I was talking about militaries with my son, who's pretty involved in all this stuff, pretty interested. And I made the case that Israel was the second most powerful military in the world, at least the most advanced. And he said, no, UK is more advanced. So I agreed with that. So if you agree with that, then the UK is also a more advanced military than Russia, which I think it is. I think it clearly is in terms of the weaponry, the advancements, the Navy, the aircraft carriers that the United Kingdom has. I just don't see, this is not Germany 1939. They don't have the manpower to take over Europe. They can't even beat Ukraine. I just don't, I don't see the threat at all, to be honest with you.
Well, yes, there's no threat against our country. If we had a war with Russia, it would be over in, a day or two, and we would destroy the country.
Well, we would both be destroyed. It would be the end of the world. It would be Armageddon.
If the nuclear weapons were launched, that would be the end of the world. But it's not so much that Russia's a threat to our country, so much as they're a threat to Europe. And the Europeans, like the UK, they're hesitant to go in there. Of
course, because they don't want to. Who can blame them? Why would they want to go in? They're right not to want to go in. Of course.
Yeah. So what good is the UK's weaponry if they're not going to use it? And pretty soon they're going to. I hope at least the UK and the other Western European countries will take a stronger stand and put it, give more military aid to Ukraine, because Trump is not going to do it.
I think that's the terrible idea. We totally disagree again. I cannot endorse that view. From Ari, couple of points. Russia was not attacking anyone until NATO pushed Ukraine attack dog on Russia. Yeah, I think there's truth to that. Certainly a lot of provocation. Certainly the neocons, Hillary Clinton's team, the Kagans, the Victoria Nulands bear a lot of blame for what happened there. And according to more from Ari, according to George Galloway, UK is very weak militarily. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, the last war UK fought, as far as I can think, was in the Falklands, where they just obviously won easily. And no one expected it. Everyone thought Argentina was going to keep the Falklands. I think the Iron Lady was wrong. Who cares? Let them have the Falklands. Who cares? But she wanted to defend the empire, and she won. So I'm not sure whether, Galloway would know more than me, but I think in this case, I'm going to disagree with him. Arlen, anything final, quick, and then we're going to move to the Garden State.
The bottom line is it's only Russia that did the military action that went in with bombs and is trying to destroy Ukraine. So, the Russia is at fault, and they have to be stopped, or they'll continue doing what they're doing. And I don't think that's good.
All right. So let's move to the Garden State. We're going to go east to west. Today in New Jersey is the gubernatorial primary, and I've got your candidates, and you can see the green checks. Those are Hal's endorsements. I think I'm allowed to endorse people on my channel. I hope I am. And I gave their current positions. We won't spend a lot of time. I don't know if, Arlen, you've given any thought to this particular race. I didn't even know what was happening until it came into my feed. But I called a friend of mine who lives in New Jersey, who's active in New Jersey, and they gave me some of the scoop, as did Politico. So my two choices are first, Ras Baraka with the 2 checks. He's the mayor of Newark, which has not the Mayork of Newark, but Newark mayor. And then the other mayor in the race, Steve Fulop, is also very good, very progressive. Jersey City, the borders right there on Newark, right outside across the river from Manhattan. So I would say those are your 2 best choice. Both are very progressive. Both are calling for higher taxes on the wealthy. Both support a much greater involvement by the state in health care to keep prices down, to keep the amount of money the state has to pay for Medicaid down, and to guarantee care for all New Jerseyans. So they're excellent. I'm going to go down the list, Arlen, and then if you want to chip in at any point, please just raise your hand or interrupt. Go ahead.
One thing right now, and that is if this is your ballot and you have Ras Baraka with 2 votes, you're only allowed 1 vote, Hal, and I don't even think you live in New Jersey, so you only
get 1 vote. I just made 2 checks. The 2 mean I like Baraka best. Fulop is a second choice. Although there's an argument, my friend told me, for Fulop, which is it's a winner take all. This is not a ranked choice voting. This is just the plurality wins. Whoever gets the most votes wins and on the first ballot. And any of these 6 candidates have a path to victory. I understand they're not expecting. New Jersey's a very large state. I think they have 8 million, 9 million, 10 million people there. There may not be 2 million votes. So that's a very small, percentage. And all of them have some name recognition, as you can see. You have 2 Congress members. You have mayors of 2 of the biggest cities in the state. You have this president of the New Jersey Education Association, that's Sean Spiller. He was formerly in the New Jersey Senate, I believe, and Stephen Sweeney, former New Jersey Senate president, who's also involved in labor. So they all have their base. Gottheimer is the outspoken Zionist, totally pro-Israel, pro-genocide, I would describe it. He has a lot of Orthodox Jewish money. I'm going to guess that relatives of mine who live in New Jersey who are Orthodox are going to vote for him. Mikey Sherrill, also from Congress. She's kind of a Kamala type, doesn't take positions on anything. She's considered the front runner. And then Spiller and Sweeney, kind of the also rans. And any of them could win, Arlen. If you live in New Jersey, if you know anyone in New Jersey, I would urge them to vote for either Baraka or Fulop. The argument for Fulop is he has a better shot, possibly to beat Sherrill, who is probably the favorite at this point.
Yeah, well, every election these days, this year, is very important because there's not going to be that many. We have to wait until November of 2026 before the next nationwide vote is going to happen. So everybody will be watching each of these smaller elections and just seeing if there's any trends, if there's anything that we should pay attention to. But they're all important at this point.
Well, my friend also made the point that the Republican is somewhat of a moderate, a centrist Republican, I guess sort of a Schwarzenegger type, if you want to use him as a model for or Larry Hogan for people in Maryland. So if the Democratic primary victor is Gottheimer or Sherrill, you're not going to really have much difference between the Republican and the Democrat. So really the election, I believe, that matters is today. It's whether Democrats can unite behind a progressive or not. Let's hope they can. Certainly, that's my view, Arlen. And if they can't, I will endorse the Green Party candidate. I'll probably endorse them anyway in the end. But at this point, well, Barack is really good. He's really progressive. He's really fought for the people of Newark. And I want to just make one final comment here about that race, Arlen. Let's see if we can see. There could be some concern about Baraka because he is the mayor of Newark, and here is another mayor of Newark. So I don't know if you want. I sure wouldn't want him to be the governor of the state, but I don't know that Barack is cut from quite the same cloth. Let's hope he's not, as U.S. Senator Cory Booker there.
Well, I see Cory Booker becoming much more visible everywhere. I think he definitely wants to be president, and he'll be looking for it. And he's a very articulate, very strong candidate. So he has to be watched. And, his 25-hour speech in Congress obviously got a lot of publicity. But, he's got a lot of opinions on a lot of things. He's fairly progressive, to my knowledge. So,
well, he's done a lot of backbench work for the for-profit healthcare industry, stymied reforms to keep prices lower for New Jersey residents, his constituents. He hasn't, every now and then he'll take a more progressive position, but it's only when he's getting a lot of push. He's also consistently supported arms for Israel. So those are two areas where he's been terrible. I haven't gone through his whole record, but he's consistently, from my reading, been a real centrist, a real corporate type senator, not someone who's outspoken fighting for working people.
Well, you might be right about him. I don't know for sure, but he does want to stay in the news, and he probably will stay in the news until the Democrats have somebody else that may look like they're a stronger candidate for president.
I think he is a shot. Arlen, I'll say this for Booker, as critical as I am, as caustic as I can be about him. If it was a choice between, and again, I'll vote for the Green in the general, and I'm now registered as a Green, I believe. But if I had to choose between Booker and Pete Buttigieg, I'd probably go with Booker. And I say Buttigieg because I understand he's kind of considered the front runner right now. Him and maybe AOC.
Yeah, he always comes up strong in the polling preferences. But again, this is way too early to even think very hard about these candidates and who's going to come out to be the best presidential candidate. But a lot of them are going to try, and we have to pay attention because one of them will eventually come out on top and be the Democratic nominee for president if we have an election in 2028.
Yeah, I just want to finish off with New Jersey, and we'll see if Arlen has any other thoughts as well. But here's from the Jewish Insider. This is actually, I think, how I learned about the race was my little email. Let me uncover myself. But this is exactly accurate. A lot of the editorial views of the Jewish Insider are totally different than mine. They're anathema to me. But this is correct. It's very, very close. Nobody knows. There hasn't been much polling, and any of the candidates could win. The Jewish Insider makes the point that Gottheimer has consolidated the Orthodox Jewish support, but that's not that big a chunk of the electorate in New Jersey, and he will need more support to win if he does. But let's just hope. I hope he doesn't, because it's not just that he's bad on Israel. He's bad on everything, is Mr. Gottheimer. Also, just real quick, Arlen, I don't know if I talked to you about this race, but the New York mayor's race is coming right up. And you have Andrew Cuomo versus Zoran Mondani are the two front runners. This is different. This is ranked choice voting. So you keep going until you have somebody getting more than 50% of the vote. And these two polls, I thought, wow, this is exciting. In one of the two polls, it's only 2-point lead for Cuomo. But when I did a little more diving, this just came out yesterday, Arlen. A little more diving shows that it's a Mamdani commissioned poll that shows him within 2 points. The other poll shows Cuomo with a 12-point lead, which got me very concerned since the 2-point lead that Cuomo putatively enjoys is pursuant to a Mamdani commission poll. But the 12-point lead is pursuant to a Cuomo commissioned poll. So really, they're basically worthless. I think those candidate polls are basically worthless, Arlen, at least what they put out for public consumption.
But it's amazing that Cuomo is still, running for office after all that he went through and all the apologies he had to make. But I guess, name recognition is very important. And the name Cuomo has always been important in New York politics. So, he'll definitely be a strong candidate. I'm not sure who Mamdani is. Maybe you could tell me because I'm not looking that
close. Did we not? So, Arlen, just real quick, we did not discuss this race previously on one of your appearances?
I don't remember that.
The New York mayor's primary is in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today. It's June 24th.
Wow.
There are, I believe, 9 or 10. There are 10 candidates. The two front runners are Andrew Cuomo, former governor, and Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani is a Queens, he's from Queens. He is a state assembly member. So he is in the New York State Assembly in Albany, along with, there's several other candidates. There's Adrienne Adams. She is not in the state assembly, but several others. I don't even have all the names in front of me. One of them, Jessica Ramos, who's also in the state assembly, endorsed, she's a candidate, but she endorsed Cuomo at this point, which has really frustrated a lot of people because she's supposed to be progressive. But yeah, so Mamdani is a state assembly member who's really run some great ads. He's called for rent freeze on all middle-class housing. He's calling for free buses in New York and throughout the 5 boroughs. And I don't know about the subway, if he would make the subway free, but he wants the buses to be free and he wants them to run much, much better, much more efficiently. He has various ways of paying for this, including surcharges on Wall Street and other solutions. So he's gotten a lot of attention. People seem to really respond to him. And he may in fact be able to win this primary.
Well, if anybody talks about things being free, it's going to help their candidacy. And, he's got nothing to lose by saying, free buses, free subways, whatever. But exactly how that'll affect the New York budget might be something we have to look at.
Yeah, apparently, though, the numbers do add up because his proposals for his pay-fors do actually pay for the cuts that he's talking about. There's other areas, or rather the added expenses. There's other areas that he would cut and other revenue sources that he wants to tap into. So apparently it does add up. So that's a good thing. And I hear you though. A rent freeze is problematic. It's not an ideal solution, but the city is completely unaffordable. Certainly Manhattan is now for working class people. It's just like San Francisco. A 2-bedroom apartment is now going to be well over $6,000 a month. So you're looking at out-of-pocket expenses, $75,000, $80,000 at a minimum if you need a 2-bedroom, right? Which you would certainly need if you have a couple of kids or more. That's just out of reach for just so many. Say a school teacher in New York City is maybe making $100,000. They're not going to be able to afford. They're not going to be able to. That's not what their starting salary is. But after a few years, maybe they get up to $100,000. They're not going to be able to afford that. You work for the transit authority. You can't afford that. It's just not possible.
That same thing is going on pretty much everywhere in California. The cost of rent and owning is just way too onerous for most people, for the average person. So there's a lot of places in this country where it is like a division between the well-off and the poor people, and only the well-off are going to be able to think about owning homes in certain towns in certain areas.
Yeah, it's really tough. And I get that rent freezes aren't necessarily, they're certainly not an efficient way to have affordable housing, but only through much higher taxes on the wealthy, only through jobs programs that rebuild the middle class can you get the kind of affordable housing constructed and have enough revenue, have people have income that they can afford it. So short of a rent freeze, and I think he's pretty smart. He seems to understand the economics involved of rent freezes. I think in the end, it's going to be, just very gradual increases in rents. But I will say this: New York has had rent freeze laws for 100+ years, and it wasn't until very recently when they they kind of abolished a lot of it, eliminated it. They grandfathered in apartments, but those apartments have turned over now, and the city was fine even with rent stabilization. Anyway, it was fine. So the death of rent stabilization laws has been a factor in the unaffordability crisis.
Yeah, and you brought up the middle class, and that's the biggest problem right now in this country. I think the middle class is disappearing. I mean, a couple decades ago, we had lots of people in the middle class, but now so many people are at the point where if they have a big bill on something, a big health bill, a big they're just not going to be able to keep up, and that's unfortunately the case for so many people, probably the majority of people who just living paycheck to paycheck. Well,
this was a big problem for Kamala, because remember, she had zero, she actually had a plan. When she first became the nominee, well, she was anointed to be Biden's successor, she talked about, giving a grant, a $25,000 grant to first-time family home buyers. She also talked about going after investing companies and those the private equity landowners, and that was popular. Now, I don't think her plan was going to be that powerful, that meaningful, but it would have had some effect, I presume. And people liked it, but she quickly backed off of it. And then she did not talk further about ways to make things more affordable. I think if Democrats want to win, they have to go to school on that failed campaign and say, well, this is what people want to hear, is ways that Democrats will make their lives a little easier.
That's why I like AOC. She has some really strong progressive views that I think she'll stand with, and she'll emphasize. And if people want to like what they hear, then maybe she'll have a shot.
All right, Arlen, you have not been in the past a fan of this guy, and he looks a little angry in that picture. I just linked to the video of him on Pod Save America. This was a video you actually wanted to discuss. He looks kind of angry there. I understand the anger. Before we play, just the first minute or so, you said you want to share, maybe you're feeling a little less critical of Gavin Newsom at this point?
Yeah, I've never seen him be as strong as he is right now, and really, going to the mat. He's willing to take on Trump, and he's not afraid to say things, and he was very emphatic in the things he was saying. So I like the Gavin Newsom I'm seeing right now. I didn't so much like him before, but and now he's also taken some somewhat conservative positions on some issues, which may help him if he decides to run for president. Well, we know he wants to run for president.
Well, so, we got a lot of attention, some critical, for his for saying he didn't support trans athletes in high school sports, specifically trans girls. And, I agree with him on that issue. I don't think it was well presented. I don't think he should have done it on Charlie Kirk's program necessarily, or he should have been much more willing to confront Kirk on a lot of Kirk's views that are reprehensible, such as, his full-throated support for Israel. Although, and if Newsom's running for president, then obviously that's very, very important, how he his stance on Israel. There's many positions that Kurt takes I totally disagree with. Medicare for all. Yeah, he kind of is a blind squirrel that found the nut when it comes to trans in sports. But that's a real low-hanging fruit. That's what most Americans believe by a significant margin. And I would note, you can say, and what you should say is, yeah, we want to keep girls' sports for girls, for girls, but we have to be very compassionate, recognize the challenges that trans people face, which are it's a real hardship. I guess Newsom did say that a little bit, but yeah, I mean, he got a lot of criticism for that, but I'm not going to go after him for that. But here, let's play the clip where he goes after Trump.
Our guest today is the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Good to be with you.
So, Governor, we talked earlier in the show about the protests over the weekend, the incidents of violence, President Trump taking over and deploying the California National Guard. We are talking.
By the way, this clip is from yesterday, I believe. This was yesterday. Is that right, Arlen? Do you know? I think so.
Well, he was all over the news yesterday. I think he was on a lot of different programs.
PM Pacific on Monday. So far, the protests today have seemed to be pretty peaceful and calm. Do you think things are now under control?
For the moment, but they're not about to be. He just called up another 2,000 National Guard, so it's now 4,000. And we're getting word that he's looking to operationalize that relationship and advance significantly larger scale ICE operations in partnership and collaboration with the National Guard. We're on the other side now of the red line. And I haven't even mentioned the self-evident major escalation, which is next level. And that is the Secretary of Defense just moments ago tweeting out that he's, quote unquote, deploying 700 active military to Los Angeles. And unless he just done it, I have not seen the Insurrection Act formally advanced. But by definition, this would require the Insurrection Act.
All right, so just real quick, Arlen, I understand the Insurrection Act has not been used. In other words, Trump has not invoked it. He's using some other act, and the Marines that were deployed or are being deployed, to my understanding, and I got in part from David French, and the columnist in the New York Times, who I usually don't read and usually don't give much credence to, but in this case, I think he's right. The troops are just standing by. So they're not being deployed. They're not being sent in to confront protesters. They're just standing there in case there's property that's threatened or lives being threatened. That's so far, and that's before we went live. Again, we're not seeing Los Angeles burning at this point. So, this is what I'll say. If nothing much more happens, Trump is going to come out of this looking fine. People are going to say that Newsom was an alarmist. They're going to say people overreacted. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't want our military deployed in the United States. I don't think there was a need for the National Guard. But again, unless something really bad happens, and let's pray it doesn't, if you pray, hope it doesn't, like me, I hope. I don't think Trump's going to come out of this scathed.
Yeah, anytime the issues have to do with immigration, it usually helps him. You just look at the people that want more, and they're just different colors, different. They just don't look like the typical, Republican MAGA person. So yeah, Trump's in a good position. If things get worse, and he has to bring, if we have to see our soldiers fighting in the streets of Los Angeles, I don't know if people really understand how horrible that would be and how illegal that would be. But, the news media just might make it sound like he's doing a great thing and stopping these horrible rioters. So it's tricky.
Well, I don't think the media is particularly on Trump's side. I mean, I know you've made the point that the media tends to be conservative. I certainly agree with that, but they don't seem to be particularly Trump supporters to my observation. And I would note, when you say that the people being deported don't look like MAGA, they kind of sort of do. I mean, there were a lot of Latinos who did vote for Trump. So that's pretty much who's being deported, not completely, but a significant number. So I think it's hard to make this really about necessarily ethnicity or race even. Trump is pretty good at kind of pitting working class people against each other. And I think that's what we're seeing more than anything else with him, with his candidate, with his election.
Yeah, definitely. He is good at pitting groups against other groups, and nobody does it better than he does. But I'm glad to see at least somebody that we have a face that goes against the policies that are happening in Los Angeles. And if Gavin Newsom is the one, then that's fine, as well as Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. She's talking very strong. So somebody's got to stand up to Trump, and Newsom is wise to, put himself out there, and it might just help him, presidentially in the next election.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think he's probably thinking about that. And that's what Trump has said also, that this is sort of a campaign, opportunity for Newsom. But that said, he should use it because it is wrong. There shouldn't be troops deployed. The National Guard wasn't necessary. We can see that. There you see so far 134 million, quite a expensive walk in the park. Although I was surprised it wasn't even more, to be perfectly honest. But we don't have the final bill. I guess that is their estimate. So we'll see.
And there's another amount that we should consider, and that's the military parade on Saturday. I keep hearing 45 million. 50 million or more, to clean up the mess that they're going to do in Washington, D.C., to the streets, to everything. So we're spending a lot of money unnecessarily, and I hope it bothers people.
Yeah, Arlen, and as you said, it probably won't. Most people, honestly, their first concern is what we just discussed, is paying the rent. It's having enough to, pay for groceries. It's having a little left over. It's thinking about and fearing retirement. So I guess I would ask you, given that reality, what should Democrats be doing? Is having a no King's Day the answer, or is there something else they need to do?
Well, it's one thing they can do, and they haven't really done anything else. So I'm hoping it'll be a strong turnout in protest on Saturday against, that horrible military parade on Trump's birthday. What can the Democrats do? That's a real problem. And the biggest problem of all is that there's nobody around who's going to stop Trump from doing what Trump wants to do. Democrats have no power to do that. They can only, talk about things. They can try to persuade people, but they have absolutely no power at all. And I think that's a pretty bad position to be in.
Well, I think they have power. Gavin Newsom has power. He's the governor of the state. He has some real power. There are Democrats with power. And the Democrats and the courts have stopped a number of Trump's actions. The Congress, for example, Democrats could have stopped that House big, beautiful bill if they hadn't died, right? Part of the reason they have little power is because they're old. They're old and they die, and then they have fewer votes. So these are all areas where Democrats need to, really take stock and also try to rally maybe some Republicans to their side, or public opinion. Public opinion also has impacted on the way things Trump does. So I think you're understating a little bit what Democrats can do. By the way, I just wanted to say greet Maria in the chat. It's great to see you, Maria, in the chat. New poster there, as far as I know. Go ahead, Arlen.
Yeah, realistically, I'm afraid the Democrats don't have any power, as far as the law goes. So I think what they have to do is come up with a program, a plan, some policies that they can really push, so the American people will understand what they would be voting for if the Democrats, got into power. They've got to talk about health issues. They got to talk about, medical issues. You saw what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did. My gosh, he completely made the entire vaccine board disappear. So, but the Democrats have to show exactly where they're different than the Republicans, and push it. And, they've got several years to do it, but they have to make a strong effort. And, maybe with some newer people and younger people.
Yeah, that's for sure true. Thought leader Arlen Grossman with us for an Arlen Tuesday. He blogs at the Big Picture Report. I just put up a screenshot there from the Big Picture Report. Arlen, let's talk a little bit about that article that you linked to by your buddy there. What is the term I'm looking for? Your I don't know. Your best bro. I don't know. Your bestie, Tom Hartman. Who owns America? Musk and Trump are fighting over the deed, and this is the latest from America's. Does he call himself America's host? I think Tom Hartman.
Oh, well, he definitely makes the claim of being the number one progressive, and he's got a lot of reasons to say that because
I think he does. I agree. I believe he is certainly the number one radio progressive, and he has enormous. I was amazed when I saw his live stream. I mean, hundreds. I don't know if he had 100,000 at live, but he gets hundreds of thousands of clicks on his live stream. Probably many of them are over 1 million. It's pretty impressive. I got to give him credit for it, especially for somebody that I've always found particularly dry and pedantic. But
yeah,
people like him.
Yeah,
you're not even arguing with me. You're like, yeah, he's a little dry and pedantic.
No, I think that one of the things that amazes me about him is how prolific he is. He's just writing books like every month, and writing a opinion piece every day. He's going into all issues and is very trying to get his views out there. So he is very present. He's very smart, I think, and that's why he's one of my favorites.
Well, I agree with you. He is prolific, and I have always said this. I'm going to give him his props. You lent me one of his books, The Last Hours, I believe, or Days of Ancient Sunlight, and I have to say it was. I assume he was right. I didn't, check up on all the facts he lays out, but it seemed awfully persuasive. His explanation of, why fossil fuels are so dangerous and why we need to go to solar. So I was really, it was an excellent book. I mean, I give him, 5 stars for it or whatever the rating system is. So I don't always like him as a host. There are things about Hartman that rub me the wrong way, but he's successful, very successful, persuasive. I agree with him on some things. And did a great job with that book anyway. So this is this very important quote, which I assume you 100% agree with. We may have democracy, or we may have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we can't have both. Why does Hartman center that at the beginning of his piece, Arlen?
It has to do with wealth, I think. The fact that the big money is controlling, everything in this country right now. And let me just give you a quick quote. He's looking the Treasury in broad daylight, talked about Trump giving away a $4 trillion tax cut to his billionaire donors and golf buddies, repealing clean air and water protections while wildfires torch the West, and he's inviting domestic terrorists into the Hall of Power. His family and cronies are raking in billions from foreign governments, from Saudi royals to Russian oligarchs to Chinese fund companies, with not even a fig leaf of legality. In other words, Trump is getting away with all kinds of things, and there's nobody around to stop him.
Is that from the Hartman piece? Because that didn't sound familiar. It is. That's interesting, because I thought I read through it, but that's okay. No, I'm sure, but Hartman is very, very concerned with our whole electoral system and the power money has over who's elected, and how dark money influences us in ways we don't even know it's there. I don't think there's any argument. My question to Tom and to you would be, and if you want to elaborate on that, please do. But my question would be, well, okay, yes, this is a terrible problem. What do we do about it?
That's the problem right now. There is not much that we can do about it, but he's trying to get people aware of what's going on so that, they realize that we're at an important point in history, and we have to start standing up to Trump. How? I don't know, but he wants everybody to at least be well informed and thinking about how bad the Trump administration is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think some of his descriptions are fair, very fair. The way the crypto promoters have gotten pretty much everything they want is especially troubling, very, very upsetting. Crypto is terrible for the environment, all the energy that's used to mine this pseudo currency. It's virtual. It's not real. It's scam. It's real scammy, if you ask me. There's nothing real legitimate. And yet, if you criticize the industry, you are targeted, as Katie Porter was. So this is very, very troubling. Certainly, the support that the billionaires are, providing for Israel has been incredibly harmful for our, for the people in the region, but also for our democracy. So I think Tom's got something. He's got a lot. He says we need to overturn Citizens United, and he's right, but he doesn't really give, again, a roadmap. And maybe it's because there isn't one. At least, we can't seem to find one.
Yeah, it seems like the Constitution really wasn't written with somebody like Trump in mind, because he's pretty much not left the opposition any power at all to do anything about what Trump is doing. And and then of course our electoral system is so belongs to billionaires and those who are the top. I think the top 8 of the top 10 billionaires were giving money to Republicans rather than Democrats. So they've got the money, they're using it. Elon Musk spent $290 million to make sure Trump got elected. So what options do we have? Very little at this time.
Well, here's what Hartman writes. Unless we overturn Citizens United and reclaim our democracy from billionaire sociopaths, the Musk-Trump cage match is just the opening act. And he doesn't, to the extent you do, Arlen, put this, focus on Trump. I mean, his concern is the billionaires taking control. So he's saying, hey, Trump will be gone, but then there's going to be Bezos versus Zuckerberg. There's going to be, the Koch brothers are now pretty old, but there'll be the next generation of billionaires, the Peter Thiels and et cetera. And he's absolutely right. This is a terrible, terrible problem that we must address. And he does give a solution, but I think the problem with his solution is there's no roadmap. I mean, it's kind of wish fulfillment, isn't it? So unless we all decide to, or at least until we all decide to do something about it. So here's his answer. We have to vote out every possible Republican and all of the corporate so-called moderate Dems who have enthusiastically embraced Citizens United and the corruption it's brought us. So the work falls to us, pass it along. All right. Okay. I mean, I'm good with that.
Yeah, me too. But realistically, there's not much chance of that happening, unfortunately. I think Tom Hartman understands the situation we're in and how dire it is. And he's trying to get people to understand and trying to get people to do something about this. But, he doesn't, Democrats don't have the cards like Trump was talking about with Zelensky. They don't have the power to really do anything. So until they, the best hope right now is maybe the 2026 midterm election. And if they could, lead in the House and, capture the House ahead of the Republicans, then that'll stop Trump a little bit.
Well, it depends, because remember what Hartman said. You also have to vote out those moderate Dems. It's not enough to give the Democrats the majority, according to Hartman. You have to get rid of the moderate Dems as well. Here's one answer from some members of the Democratic Party. Democrats eye a villain to ally arc for Elon Musk. So their response to the billionaire money that has poisoned our politics and that at least helped Trump is to try to get it for themselves.
That's dangerous. I don't think we should ally with Musk at all, because you never know what he's going to be doing or thinking at any particular time. He's pretty erratic. If he takes the drugs that he's supposed to be taking and takes the views that he keeps changing all the time.
Well, he's saying that I don't know what ketamine is. I keep hearing about ketamine. I have no idea. Do you know what ketamine is? I never even heard of it until recently. Apparently, that's some drug.
It's kind of a painkiller type of drug that can be used for a lot of different reasons. Doctors do use it. It can be helpful in the right hands, but right now it's just too many people are sending it everywhere where it's not supposed to, and people are getting it illegally.
Well, Arlen, I did talk about this story yesterday about how the Democrats, at least some of them, are trying to, entice Musk to their side. And it's not just the moderates. It's not just the corporate Dems. It's progressive Ro Khanna said Dems should be in a dialogue with Musk. We should be trying to convince him that the Democratic Party has more of the values that he agrees with. When you read that, and we agree Musk is a real danger. He's as big a danger in many ways, or he's more. Trump is more the symptom, whereas Musk really is the cancer, the richest man in the world. Doesn't that? Do you start saying, yeah, maybe Hal's got a point. We got to go move because if this is the best the Democratic Party has is Ro Khanna. That's pretty scary, if you ask me.
It is, and it's really a tough situation because if you go with Musk, then he decides to support some Democrats, well, Trump has already been talking about that, and he's really threatening Musk if anything like that is done. So there's a lot of powerful people here. You got the richest person in the world, Musk. You got the most powerful person in the world, Trump, and it's hard to get in somewhere in between that and maybe push them farther apart, and that might be the best hope for the Democrats.
All right, Arlen, it's always great to talk to you. We are coming up on the end or to the end of the program. So do you have any final words, add-ons? I sometimes cut you off. I talk over you. Something you wanted to say and you didn't get an opportunity.
No, that's usually not the case. But I think right now, we have to really watch closely what's happening in Los Angeles, because I think Trump really wants to show that we can be a pleased state, and he's got all the power to do that. And so that's frightening right there. And, foreign policy, he doesn't seem to know what he wants to do. In Ukraine and Gaza, he's not doing anything that's helping anybody. So, there's just a lot of problems around the world. And, Trump seems to be, leading the problems. He's the one that makes things worse all the time. So, and I think he really does want a pleased state. And that's one of the reasons I'm worried.
Well, it is scary. I don't disagree with you, Arlen. I tend to be less of an alarmist than you and many other Democrats I know. And I found areas when it comes to Trump that I'm less in disagreement with him than with some Democrats. But yeah, no, this is a very bad time. It's very fraught. He has a big problem that Democrats have failed to solve. And I think many of them aren't really interested in solving in particular. So all of that is going on. This is Halitics. And I kind of lied. I always say I give Arlen the last word, but today I kind of started chattering at the end and didn't give him the last word. I will give this final advice. Please, if you haven't yet, do subscribe. Do subscribe to Halitics. I think they use the term the algorithm. That's how we can get past that algorithm that may or may not like some of my reportage here, if you will. All right, Arlen, final word. I'll give you a final word. I really will, and then I'm going to end the program.
I'm going to make the final word the fact that I sent you an email that I will not be able to be on your program next Tuesday. So, because my daughter has invited me down to San Diego to spend some time with her, and that'll be during the time I would normally be on Halitics. So, regretfully, I won't be on the next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, you could count on me.
All right, that sounds great, Arlen. Have a great week off. You deserve it. Enjoy San Diego. It is beautiful down there, just like it is throughout California. And I will be back. Arlen will not be here tomorrow. I will. So enjoy the rest of the day, and I will see you next time on Halitics.
Great.